When I was a kid, my parents would occasionally run away for long romantic weekends, just the two of them, and they'd leave my sister and I under the supervision of our Uncle Rudy. Now, as far as we knew, Rudy didn't have a home other than this conversion van he rode around in. He'd park and pop the top on some suds, and he would crank up this little hibachi, and he'd get it really, really going, and he would just incinerate whatever chunks of cheap chuck he could find, you know, down at the cash and carry. Oh, and he had these skewers that he said our great-grandfather took off some Turk during the Great War. Rudy thought those kebabs were the height of cuisine. And the beer, too. I probably don't have to tell you that those kebabs tasted hideous, or that my sister and I adored them. You know, the entire kebab thing seemed so foreign, so exotic, and sometimes Rudy lit a sword fight with the skewers when we were done eating. Explains why my mother never liked that man. Anyway, like many American skewer meisters, Uncle Rudy's kebab served as a bold expression of his desire to have as little to do with cooking as possible, which is a shame, because with a little time, attention, know-how, and the right skewers, kebabs can be a true expression of Dateline Turkey, 900 AD. As the moon rises over the barren, desolate plains of Eurasia, bands of marauding Ottomans, tired and hungry from a long day of empire building, settle down to their supper. Like my Uncle Rudy, these guys travel light and rarely eat at a table, much less with a fork. And of course, they don't seem to have anything to sit on even, but they are a civilized and inventive lot. So when one of them manages to kill a critter or two, they adapt and they use their swords and daggers as culinary tools, and thus the shish kebab, or skewered roasted meat product, is born. Of course, you have to wonder, if the Ottomans were so inventive, why didn't they invent the Ottoman? Now let's say that come supper time, you found yourself facing one simple tool, a wee little bit of time, not much in the way of fuel, and one big old honking piece of meat, say a yak rump or something like that. Now, the amount of time and temperature, and therefore fuel, required to cook a piece of meat is greatly a function of surface area. Now, this piece of meat has an approximate surface area of 864 square inches of surface area, give or take a couple of inches. But if we were to cut this into 2-inch cubes, now, if I have counted correctly, we now have 216 2-inch cubes, possessing a total of, if I can use this thing, 5,175 inches of square inches of surface area, give or take. Now, all other things being equal, this meat would now cook almost 6 times faster than before, and obviously with a lot less fuel. So clearly, kebabbery is a very time and fuel efficient way of cooking. Now, what does this mean to Americans like you and me? Probably have plenty of fuel and food on hand. Well, for one thing, properly prepared kebabs deliver unparalleled flavor at a very low price. And since we're even more pressed for time than medieval marauders, skewer-based cookery makes a lot of sense. Of course, we do have to have the right meat for the job, and although yak rump will work, I think there are probably better options at the Mega Mart. Although many cuts from the round to the chuck have kebab potential, I believe that the sirloin best delivers that perfect balance of beefy flavor and meaty texture that you would expect from something as primal as a kebab. Now, sirloin is very easy to fabricate in the home kitchen environment, and at, well, under $8 a pound, it is a bargain. You know, I think I'll have that second one from the bottom. Yeah, that's the one. By the way, if you've ever heard that story about King Henry VIII having knighted this piece of meat, thus making it sirloin, and that's crazy talk. The sir comes from the French under, so sirloin actually means under the loin. There. Now, traditionally, kebabs and their kin receive at least a brief soak in a marinade. Why? Well, remember our Turkish marauders? When they managed to land a meaty morsel, it usually wasn't prime beef. It was a boar or a bear, some other strange critter that was probably gamey and dry and tough. To counteract these conditions, the raiders would soak their dinner in a richly spiced goo prior to cooking. Want to infuse your kebabbery with authentic Ottoman flavor? Fine. Just hook up your faithful food processor and add 3 cloves of garlic, 2 teaspoons of paprika, smoked if you can get it, 1/2 teaspoon of ground turmeric, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, toasted would be nice, 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, 1/2 teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper, 1/3 of a cup of red wine vinegar. Then slap on the lid, turn on, and drizzle in 1/2 cup of olive oil. The oil will help to move fat-soluble flavors into the meat, as well as lubricate any connective tissue that it can get to. The acid in the vinegar will bring flavor and moisture to the party, as well as break down a little bit of connective tissue. But despite popular mythology, the acid will not penetrate the meat deeply enough to tenderize it. There. Now, toss the marinade and kebab meat in a heavy zip-top bag with as much air squeezed out as possible. That will maximize meat marinade contact. Toss this into something that will prevent any contamination should leakage occur, and stash in the refrigerator for, let's say, 2 to 4 hours. That should give us just enough time to do a little hardware searching. Hi, W. You know, it's funny that you were...
I really don't have time to play. Just remember, you break it, you bought it.
Well, I get the point, and so soon shall she. Once upon a time, choosing a skewer was as simple as drawing one's dagger or fixing one's bayonet. Today, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of different designs, most of them really bad. For instance, take this curved model, which is meant to sit on the edge of one's plate, how you're supposed to... Yeah, I don't know. Other standouts, we got baskets, we've got racks. This is like, I don't know, Dante's kebab pitchfork of death or something. And oh, check this out. Here's a rack for the especially lazy. You put all the kebabs on there and turn one handle and they rotate over the fire. I don't know. I say that we avoid all such mechanical whimsy and just get a straightforward skewer. But even there, things are a little bit tricky because we've got a lot of things to consider. Is it sharp enough? Is it durable enough? And is it not going to rust through years of use? The only thing I can think to do is to test them all. Remember, AB, if you break it, you bought it. First thing we have to do is check for tip sharpness. Ow! What? Wow, that took way too much force. Let's try another. Maybe something a little more slender.
Well, if it wasn't you, then who? Oh, so little Missy wants to play Missile Command, does she? Okay.
Now that's sharp, but you notice that the metal stock is really kind of rounded. That means that food could slip around it too easily, and this little grip on the end, way too small to get hold of with either tongs or oven mitts. Hey, let's try a non-stick version, see if it penetrates thin pieces of meat any easier. Wow. That's not the kind of thing you want to see happen. Well, I guess there's nothing to do but test them all. Well, after exhaustive testing, I do believe we have a winner. Check it out. It's about 13 inches of skewer. It is heavy-duty nickel-plated steel. You'll notice that it is rectangular in cross-section. That'll keep food from flopping around. It's got a nice sharp point that can easily be filed to keep it that way. And on this end, a nice big loop for easy handling and storage. Yep. Everybody that loves it, raise your hand and say, yay!
Ow! Now it's my hand. It's in my hand now. Look, let's take it. Look.
Just try to relax, Miss Swong. We'll have you to the hospital in no time. Thank you. Thank you. Be good.
You don't understand.
Although kebabbery be a simple sport, I do find that by following a few basic guidelines, you can bolster your chances of success. You'll notice that I like to work with latex gloves. That's just because this can get a little bit messy and the marinade will stain if you're not careful. Also have to do less hand washing this way. Now, note that even though all the ingredients are going to be cooked through, I do keep the meat segregated away from the vegetables just to prevent any possibility of cross-contamination. You'll also notice that I arrange the meat before I actually do any skewering. This way I can kind of sort out sizes and numbers. I know that all these little pieces obviously are going to go onto a kebab that will cook faster, and these larger pieces here will cook a little slower. So I've got good organization here, and I know that I need 4 skewers. Now when it comes to the actual skewering, you always want to aim for center mass. Now we face the #1 kebabbing dilemma. Do we leave the meat packed in together or do we space it? Now, all packed together like this, we've got stability. The meat is a lot less likely to spin as we turn the kebab, but we don't have much in the way of surface area. By spreading out the meat, just putting a bare ½ inch in between each piece, we increase the surface area by a factor of, I don't know, maybe, wow, almost 1.5 times, which means that these pieces are going to cook faster, and of course there's going to be more char, and char equals flavor. You can see where I'm going with this. Besides, one of the reasons that I think we can go with spacing here is that by using sirloin and by skewering it across the grain, we're going to have a little more stability than we would with most other cuts. There we go. Now, if you're not going to cook those right away, definitely put them back into the refrigerator. In the meantime, we will consider vegetables. Now, when running through vegetables, there are still some guidelines, beginning with the skewers in question. If you have some skewers with relatively flat blades, you want to use them for vegetables because they're a lot less likely to split things. And there are some other challenges. I mean, look, with vegetables, we've got a lot of different textures, different hardnesses, and different shapes. Now, things with squishy centers like zucchini should always be cut in at least 1-inch rounds, and then you should skewer through the side. Now, when skewering, don't hold like this. Okay, I've seen some horrible things happen. Right, so lay it down like this, flat on a clean counter or work surface. Put your hand on top and run through thusly. Nice and safe and even. Now, moving on, we've got mushrooms. Now, mushrooms are notorious skewer spinners, so always leave the stem on and always run through the stem from the bottom forward. Like that, okay? Onions. Onions are very popular on kebabs, but cutting them into wedges and then trying to put them on, they always fall apart. So I suggest going with either big hunks of leeks or large pearl onions. Leave them intact, just, you know, trim off a little bit from both ends. Then when you run those through, go through the root end. If you find that there's too much resistance with something like an onion, hold the food with a rolled up kitchen towel so that if the skewer slips, it doesn't slip too far, if you get my drift. There you go. We've also got peppers, very, very popular. I like working in little rounds like this because when you run those guys through, they stay nice and even and you get some charring around the side. But if you prefer, you can always cut your peppers into strips and kind of lace them on. Unfortunately, you do have to do this up in the air like this. Sometimes they break, sometimes they don't. That way you get more char on the sides. Last but not least, do not leave out the hard vegetation. Things like sweet potatoes and rutabagas are great kebab fodder. Just be sure that you soak them in water for a while before you try skewering them. It'll keep them from splitting. And again, lay them down and use the towel to run them through. Although you can certainly successfully cook your kebabs under the oven broiler, it is a tedious task at best. If you've got a grill, that's what you're going to want to use. And if you've got a gas grill, and I happen to know that most of us in America do, you're going to have to observe a couple of extra rules. One, your grates are going to have to be very, very clean when you start. You're going to want to make sure that your heat is set to medium high, at least in the beginning, so you get a good sear. You're going to want to flip your kebabs every couple of minutes until they are cooked through. And typically I find it's about 8 minutes for rare and about 12 minutes for medium. Once they are done, and these look like they are, I'm going to move those off to aluminum foil and just wrap them up so that they can rest for at least a couple of minutes before we take them off and serve. Now, if you are in possession of a charcoal grill or a fire bowl, otherwise known as a brazier, you are in luck, and so are your kebabs. Now, if you were to look at cooking scenes portrayed in paintings from, say, 13th century India, 14th century Persia, or Turkey, you'll see that the kebabs are always suspended over fire, not put right down on grill grates. That's strictly a Western cooking kind of thing. So, if you've got a charcoal grill, what you can do is remove the cooking grate, line some bricks around where the charcoal is, and then just lay the kebabs across the bricks. That will let you get them nice and close. I like to be about 2 inches off the charcoal. What that lets you do is to use a very small amount of charcoal, which of course is in keeping with the whole economy of this method. And of course, it creates a lot of flavor. But you are going to have to turn them frequently, which is a good thing. I usually turn them about every minute until they are done to my liking, and I like them medium with this kind of meat. Now, if you've got skewers with really big loops, odds are good you'll be able to use your fingers to flip these over, but you should still keep some of these around. Now, this is pretty close to authentic kebabbery, but if you want to really be historically accurate, you've got a little yard to spare, and just find yourself a nice level place and remove any extraneous, unnecessary plant life that can grow somewhere else. Carve yourself a shallow trench, say maybe 4 inches deep, 12 inches wide, I don't know, 5 feet long. Line it with sand, encircle it with stones or bricks, and then just fill it up with hot charcoal. Above all, remember that kebabs are party food, and it doesn't matter what the party is. You can be celebrating your new job, or, I don't know, maybe you laid siege to a fortified town. It doesn't matter, the more the merrier. Now, but going with the trench method, everyone can supervise their own cooking, and that takes the responsibility and pressure off you, the host. Now remember that in kebabbery, frequent food fiddling is absolutely necessary. You've got to keep turning the food all the time and keep testing for doneness. Now, since a thermometer isn't really practical in this form of cookery, you're going to have to use your hands. Just give the meat a squeeze. It should be firm yet yielding, charred on the outside, but clearly juicy on the inside. Since you can test a piece at a time, beef kebabs are actually a really great training ground for teaching yourself meat doneness in general. As for vegetables, keep each to its own skewer for even cooking. Brush with a little oil, sprinkle with some salt and pepper, and always work in zones. That is, fast cooking veggies like zucchini, mushrooms, small onions go over hotter coals, while dense foods like rutabagas, sweet potatoes, things like that will go over slower fire. Sweet potatoes are really very, very good, by the way. So when it comes time to serve, you've got lots of options, and that's certainly one of them. But if you're not experienced, you might put an eye out. So might I suggest, for instance, couscous? There you go, you guys eat up. Of course, what I like to do is just grab a piece of hot buttered pita and make myself an Istanbul hot dog. Well, that's what I call good eats. Of course, there is dessert to be considered. Say the words kebab and dessert, and I think fruit. Just as meat appreciates a little bit of a soak and a marinade before facing the fire, so does fruit appreciate a little syrup. Split 1 vanilla bean and scrape out the pulp, preserving both the pod and the pulp. Place a small saucepan over medium-high heat. Dump in 1 firmly packed cup of brown sugar, half a cup of freshly squeezed lime juice, a pinch of salt, and the remains of the bean. Whisk that over the heat until the sugar has thoroughly dissolved. Then set it off to the side for 2 hours so the flavors can meld. And finally, remove the pod remains. As soon as it cools, transport your syrup to the nearest squirt bottle. This is for easy application. Now, in the refrigerator, this stuff will keep for, I don't know, next to forever, but it probably won't get a chance because it is so gosh darn useful. I put this on everything from angel food cake to pork loin, but we are talking about kebabs here, and my favorite target is the pineapple. That's right, the kebabber's best friend. Let's cut one up, shall we? Now, I am a very, very big fan of serrated knives. Serrated bread knives are the best thing for this. So, start by taking the top off the pineapple and then logically the bottom. And stand it up on end and split it into quarters. Lay down those quarters and carefully split those into eighths. Then stand up each piece and just shave off the core. Then lay it down and fillet off the skin. Watch your fingers. The goal in cooking this kind of fruit is to create just a thin outer layer of sugar that will caramelize as the pineapple underneath softens. Now, cooking is going to take about 4 minutes per side. We've got 3 sides, so about 12 minutes. Be patient and feel free to reapply syrup once or twice during the process. There'll be a little smoke, but don't worry about it. Hey, everybody got your ice cream ready? Yeah. Excellent. Load up and dig in. Well, I hope your appetite is ready and willing to embrace some skewer-centric cuisine. Not only do shish kebabs link us to a more colorful, simpler time that can help you make the most of your current time, not to mention your food budget. Like my Uncle Rudy used to say, if you can't drive a steak through it, it ain't good eats. See you next time.